And now with more on this topic, Dr. Galia Lindenstrauss, Turkish affair expert and senior research fellow with the Institute of National Security Studies. Doctor, hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So what led, in your eyes, to this re-normalization?
So this time around, we see that the Turkish side was more interested in normalizing relations than Israel. In the past, usually Israel was the weaker side. Israel was the one that was seeking for better relations with Turkey. But this time around, it was Turkey that was coming from an economic weakness point and from a regional weakness point, and was really interested in normalizing relations. We saw already positive Turkish overtures toward Israel in December 2020. Israel was hesitant, took its time because of the failed normalization of 2018. It was very suspicious. Are the Turkish motives sincere? But this time around, there were several confidence-building measures, and we got to this point that Israel agreed to normalize relations.
So Erdogan said that despite the normalization, he will continue to work for a two-state solution and a Palestinian state. But what about support for Hamas? Will Israel be able to pressure Turkey into ending its support for terror groups in its territory?
This is definitely a very serious interest of Israel of pressuring Turkey to limit Hamas's military activity on Turkish soil. It is understood that Turkey has a position about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that Turkey supports the two-state solution. This is all understood, and we see many of Israel's partners having the same view. The problem between Turkey and Israel is, yes, that there is military activity of Hamas operatives on Turkish soil, but we saw also in this respect confidence-building measures to show that Turkey is taking a harsher stance against these activities, and hopefully this will continue into the future.
And do you think it's safe for Israelis to visit Turkey now?
Well, there is still this security travel warning. It's not related to the bilateral relations between Israel and Turkey, but rather to threats on Israeli tourists that are coming from Iran, from terror organizations. This is definitely an issue that Israeli tourists should be worried, not only in Turkey, but also in other places. As we know, sometimes that terror attacks come in places we didn't think that were dangerous. But what we saw in June was very close cooperation between Turkish and Israeli intelligence authorities in trying to thwart Iranian plans to harm Israelis. There were very concrete plans to harm Israelis. They were really stopped in the last minute. And I think this intelligence cooperation is also very good news for Israelis and Turks.
And you mentioned Iran. You know, on one hand, Erdogan wants good relations with Israel. On the other hand, he also has good relations with Iran. What does that leave us?
Well, of course, relations with Israel are only part of Turkey's regional policies. Turkey has regional interests, and Turkey and Israel do not see eye to eye on many subjects. However, we also know that there is a limit to how close Turkish-Iranian relations can be. There are tensions between Iran and Turkey on the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh in the Caucasus, on the issue of northern Iraq, on the issue of northern Syria. All these are areas of competition between Turkey and Iran. So definitely we can also say that while I don't see Israel and Turkey cooperating on the Iranian issue in the strategic level, there are also things that Iranians definitely do that annoy the Turks.
Mm-hmm. And it's suspected that Erdogan was working with Israel for his own political gain. What happens after Turkey's elections in 2023? Will relations be at risk after Erdogan gets what he wants?
Well, definitely we're in a stormy year to both countries, Israel heading to election in November and then Turkey heading to elections in June. I think the Turks did see an opportunity to sign the normalization agreement with this current government. They were not sure what would happen after the elections, which government. This government, because it's so wide, because there are different parties in the coalition, is actually a comfortable partner for the Turkish government. Also, President Herzog has been very useful in normalizing relations. And with regard to the elections in Turkey, yes, I think this is a cause for concern. We know that in the past, when there were elections in Turkey, Erdogan stance toward Israel hardened. But this time around, again, Turkey is coming from a weakness point, both economically and regionally. And in this respect, I think we don't have a security guarantee to this normalization, but we're coming from a better position. The Israeli side is coming from a better position to this normalization process.
Dr. Galia Lindenstrauss, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you.